What's going on, guys, and welcome back to WrestleRant, where every single week I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network as well as on the Global Wrestling Network. Today we're talking the 2017 installment of the Clash of Champions pay-per-view, which aired about a year ago on the network. This was seemingly the final installment in the history of the pay-per-view, closing out what had been a near 10-year run for the show. It went from Night of Champions to Clash of Champions in 2016. I still count it as the same show because the theme still stood, that being where every active championship was on the line. I can't say I'm surprised that the show is no more, and I'm honestly kind of glad that the show is no more because it really didn't serve much of a purpose. With the co-branded pay-per-views, I guess it makes sense to an extent. It doesn't look like it's being brought back. Obviously, this month it's going to be TLC 2018, so doesn't look like it's going to be brought back come 2019 unless maybe they bring it back on a whim as a one-off network special. I'm not sure. But I can't say I'm surprised or disappointed. A, because this installment was mediocre as fuck, which we'll talk about in a moment. And B, because it really, I don't know, I feel like when you had every championship on the line, we see that anyway with every other fucking pay-per-view. So, when every championship is on the line anyway, how much does that really mean? Now, granted, it's different now that we don't have the brand exclusive events anymore, and we have the co-branded shows back. And not every co-branded show has every title on the line. Like the Cruiserweight Championship is on the line more often than not. The United States Championship has not been defended on pay-per-view in fucking months. Aside from Crown Jewel, which I, tend to forget just because it was such an atrocity of an event. But yeah, so I mean, it would make sense if they had it in 2018, but still the show has been very mediocre for so long now. This show was not that good. The 2016 installment was not that good. The 2015 Night of Champions was The 2014 Night of Champions was The 2013 Night of Champions was mediocre as fuck too. So again, I cannot say I'm all that disappointed over Clash/Night of Champions being done away with. But when it comes to the 2017 installment, we had on the kickoff show Mojo Rawley versus Zack Ryder, the official split of the Hype Bros. They split up about a month earlier when Mojo Rawley turned on Zack Ryder following a defeat at the hands of the Bludgeon Brothers. This was honestly a better than expected match. These two did a very good job of building up their match on social media coming into the event. Mojo Rawley specifically just fucking annihilated Zack Ryder in a series of Twitter videos, targeting Ryder, talking about how he kind of eliminated all the dead weight in breaking away from Ryder after so long. The two were tag team partners for like 2.5 years, so it was a bit of a long time for those two, never once winning tag team championships either in NXT or in the main roster, which was a slight shame, but nonetheless, this was a decent match. Again, not a part of the network pay-per-view itself, it's separate, but did want to mention that Mojo Rawley went over. His push went on to amount to nothing. He did beat Ryder again in a rematch on Smackdown, but beyond that, Rawley has done fucking nothing on his own. Both guys are way worse off for splitting up than they were when they were together. I'd rather have them as a throwaway tag team than two guys that are never on TV. At least they were on SmackDown on occasion when they were a tag team. Neither guy has really been on Raw in 2018 at all. Rawley got a push for like 5 minutes back in the spring. That amounted to nothing. Ryder has rarely been on TV anyway, so what's the fucking point? Anyway, we kicked off the actual event with a triple threat match of the United States Championship, Baron Corbin defending against Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode, a match that had no build-up whatsoever. So Corbin was having a fine little reign as United States Champion. Bobby Roode and Corbin seemed to be the direction to go in for that title. Bobby Roode is coming off not a successful feud with Dolph Ziggler, but he did beat Ziggler a few times. So, he had that momentum in his back pocket, even though he was eliminated pretty quickly in the Survivor Series main event. Nonetheless, him and Corbin seemed to be the route to take, and then Ziggler was added like fucking out of nowhere. So Ziggler got thrown into the match for no apparent reason at all. And no joke, prior to this match, Ziggler had not won a match on WWE TV in months. Like, since beating Roode at Hell in a Cell, which was in early October, he had not won a match on TV in like over 2 months, which is ridiculous. So he did not earn his way into this match at all. He ended up winning the match, which was more surprising than anything. The crowd really wanted Roode to win. They were very much behind Roode, which is sad to watch in retrospect because the guy in 2018 is not over at all. People cannot give two fucks about Bobby Roode. I'm honestly a little surprised they cared about him even at that point because he was not a great babyface, but they did want to see him win the championship. he would go on to win the belt by beating Mahal in that tournament about a month later. So Ziggler, here's what happened with Ziggler. He won here. 8 days later, or not even 8 days later, like the very next SmackDown, 2 days later on SmackDown Live, Ziggler comes out and says, oh, I don't want this championship. I want bigger and better things. I'm going to walk out, blah, blah, blah. Vacates the United States Championship, therefore rendering his win on the show completely irrelevant. So why the fuck they even bothered to have Dolph Ziggler win the championship here, I have no idea. Because he came back about a month and a half later, not caring about the championship at all. He immediately went after the WWE title at the Fastlane pay-per-view, lost there, and then got put in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania. So what the hell was the point of that? Baron Corbin was certainly worse off for losing the championship here. They made a whole stink about Corbin, like, oh, you squandered all your opportunities, first with the Money in the Bank briefcase, and now with the United States Championship. But it amounted to nothing. It really kind of felt like a rib on Corbin, like something backstage, like he seemed to have some sort of heat on him for for squandering opportunities or for disrespecting people backstage. Because otherwise, I don't know why the hell they would have taken the championship off him if they took the belt off him here and he went on to do nothing in 2018 until moving to Raw in April of 2018. So, again, that was a weird move. And if anyone should have won the championship, it should have been Bobby Roode, because the crowd was behind him here. It was a great match. I forgot to mention that. The match was easily probably the best thing on the entire show now that I think about it. The show really peaked with a great opener. And I mean, again, no one was expecting it to be that good because Corbin and Roode, as a one-on-one feud, I think the match definitely benefited from Ziggler being involved, which I will say that Ziggler was a good addition to the match from an in-ring standpoint. I just did not agree with the outcome at all. I think people were surprised more than they were happy. If anything, I think they were happy that Corbin was no longer the champion, but it really should have been Bobby Roode. There was no reason for Bobby Roode to not win the championship here, especially when you consider he went on to win the belt anyway a month later on SmackDown. So why not expedite the process by having him win here? That was a weird move, but at least the match was great. After that, for the SmackDown Tag Team titles, we had a Fatal 4-Way match between the then champions of the Usos, Rusev Days, Rusev and Aiden English, The New Day, consisting of Big E and Kofi Kingston, and Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin. A very good match, a very fun 4-way. They got about 12, 13 minutes. Definitely made the most of the time they were allotted. All four teams having their time to shine at one point or another. The rules of this match, the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team matches are very weird, because sometimes I'll see only two people in the ring, and then the tag team that's not in the match has to tag their way in. That's usually the way it works. In this match, you had a member from each team in the ring. So they're very inconsistent in that respect when it comes to matches like this. But yeah, we had a match, or rather a member from each team in the match at all times. It made for a very fun match. No team should have won here other than the Usos. Rusev Day was over. Gable and Benjamin would have been cool to win here, but they weren't nearly as over as the Usos. And the New Day had their run, so to go back to the New Day Usos feud so soon after their Hell in the Cell match, I thought was questionable. But still, I thought it was good to have them in there because they made the match more entertaining as well. So this was a very good match. The Usos went over, still the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, kind of continuing the role here that we started early on with a great opener and then a very fun Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match. For the SmackDown Women's Championship, we had a lumberjack match consisting of Charlotte Flair, the then champion, and Natalya. These two had been feuding on and off for months. They first had their match at Hell in a Cell, which Charlotte won by DQ. Charlotte then won their next match on SmackDown about a month later to win the SmackDown Women's Championship, and this was Natalya's official rematch. I mean, they work well together. They've had good matches before, and they've had some even great matches. TakeOver from 2015, 2014. But we had seen it all by this point. I had seen so many fucking Charlotte versus Natalya matches. I was done. Beyond done and tired of this feud. And the lumberjack stipulation, lumberjack, lumberjill, whatever you want to call it, did not help matters at all. We had the Riot Squad out there, Tamina, Carmella, Lana, Naomi. They added nothing to the match. All the hijinks and the shenanigans really took away from the match, if anything. So the match wasn't really that good. The interference was bullshit. And at least Charlotte won was really the only good thing I can say about this. It wasn't a terrible match, but it really could have been a lot better than it was. And even without all the interference, even without the stipulation, which, again, makes no sense because they were worried about the Riot Squad interfering, which is what happened the last time they had Charlotte and Natalya face off on SmackDown. Why the fuck would you invite them down the ringside to be a part of the match? That's like inviting interference. So that made no sense, made absolutely zero sense. But as a match, it was fine. Afterward, Charlotte Caruso or Dasha Fuentes, the interviewer for SmackDown, they all look alike, they all sound alike, I get them mixed up. Dasha Fuentes asked, it might have been Renee Young, I don't know, asked Natalya about her loss and what happened. Natalya starts crying about how, like, oh, I will be back, I got screwed, blah, blah, blah. The promo was pointless. Such a pointless promo. This went nowhere, and Natalya went on to do nothing on SmackDown, so I'm not really sure what purpose that promo was supposed to serve. I mean, again, I'm all for people getting interviewed after matches if it's supposed to lead somewhere, or if there's another feud built in or another story built in. This was just a waste of time. She went off on the fans and then started crying again. Who gives a fuck? So that was weird. We had the Bludgeon Brothers making their official pay-per-view debut as the Bludgeon Brothers, because of course Harper and Rowan had been on pay-per-view before. Squashing Breezango, this one all of 2 minutes, was your pretty standard squash, as it should have been. Not exciting, but it served its purpose in getting those guys over. We had a tag team match up next, which was filled with bullshit, between Randy Orton, Shinsuke Nakamura, then the team of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. So, for months, Owens and Zayn had been feuding with Shane McMahon and the SmackDown GM Daniel Bryan. And then Orton and Nakamura got mixed in there. They were complete afterthoughts here. They lost here. It was Owens and Zayn who emerged victorious to retain their jobs on the SmackDown roster, which they should have won. But Orton and Nakamura could not have felt like any bigger of afterthoughts. Thankfully, Nakamura went on to win the Royal Rumble. Randy Orton just really did not mean anything until he came back as a heel many months later. The guy was spinning his wheels at this point. The match was not nearly as good as you would think it would be. When you have Nakamura in there, Randy Orton, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, you're expecting like a good match, something entertaining, something exciting. This was the only well-built match on the entire show. Everything else I really could not give two shits about. And then this ended up being one of the worst matches on the whole show because it was filled with bullshit. So not only did you have that added stipulation, if Owens and Zayn lost, they would have been fired from WWE, you had Shane McMahon as a special guest referee, and then Daniel Bryan too. Both guys serving as special guest referee. And it wasn't like, oh, McMahon's the referee and then Daniel Bryan's the ring enforcer where like he steps in if Shane gets knocked down. No, they were both in the ring at the same time, which was so distracting. The match was well wrestled, I guess. They tried, but they focused way too much on all the interference and the bullshit with the special guest referees and the shenanigans, and this guy wants that team to win and this guy wants that team to win. It was bullshit. I did not like this at all. Dragged on for way too long. If it was a 10-minute tag team match, then whatever. But when you have four great competitors sharing the ring with each other, that being Owens, Zayn, Orton, and Nakamura. I mean, obviously, Bryan's great too, but he wasn't technically involved in the match as a competitor. So when you have those four great wrestlers, and you completely waste them by putting them in a situation where they're really not allowed to stand out at all, and they're just subjected to shenanigans and all this other dumb, over-the-top bullshit, then it doesn't matter. Nothing matters, and I don't care. So the match sucked. Owens and Zayn won as they should have. So the whole story here was that Zayn had the match won, and then McMahon did not make the 3 count. So technically they already won the match. They were going to win anyway. Shane didn't make the 3 count because he hates Kevin Owens and didn't want them to win. He wanted them fired. So Daniel Bryan, being the impartial referee that he was, saw what Shane did, and then when Zayn rolled up Randy Orton, he made a quick 3 count, so then they won, technically by cheating, even though they weren't supposed to win by cheating originally, because Shane McMahon was the asshole and was not impartial. If you're not following along anymore, I don't blame you. If I lost you, I apologize, because this was so convoluted and confusing and fucking complicated and just pure bullshit. This was awful. We get to the main event for the WWE Championship between the then WWE Champion AJ Styles and Jinder Mahal. This was a good match. It was good. Easily the best Jinder match I've ever seen. Actually, no, I take that back. Their initial encounter on SmackDown from the month prior, when AJ first beat Mahal for the championship, was the best Jinder Mahal match I've ever seen. AJ tried to get the best match possible out of Jinder here. They relied a little too much on the interference from the Singh brothers. Thankfully, it was kept to a minimum compared to the other Jinder matches I've seen on pay-per-view, which was good. But still, though, I mean, this was not like a blow-away pay-per-view main event. For a WWE Championship main event, it really was not that exciting. The crowd did not care until the final stretch or so. And AJ really was the one who made this bearable, was the one who made this exciting. It wasn't really that exciting, but for a Jinder match, it was exciting. They tried. AJ put forth the best effort possible. Mahal was fine, too. But the guy just does not belong in pay-per-view main events. He just doesn't. And that was exposed here. And this was the real test, because if Jinder lost here, then you knew the plug was pulled on his main event push, and that he was not getting back in the main event mix. Thankfully, he did lose here. He tapped out to AJ. AJ's still your WWE champion. Jinder has not sniffed the main event scene ever since. So as a match, it was good. It was solid. Went on for way too long at 23 minutes in length. AJ did the best job possible in getting as good of a match as he could out of Jinder. But beyond that, this was a painfully average main event. And that closed out a painfully average event, too. A painfully average WWE pay-per-view. The opener was great. The show peaked with that, even though the decision, the end outcome, I thought was questionable. The tag team title match was fun. Everything else was really just kind of there and just not that strong at all. Charlotte and Natalya was mediocre. The tag team squash match was exactly that. Owens and Zayn versus Orton and Nakamura was very disappointing. And the main event was pretty bland. Good and entertaining at times, but largely bland. And not worthy of the main event spot at all. Which sucks to say about an AJ Styles match, but that has very little to do with him and a lot more to do with Jinder Mahal. So anyway, do not check out this show. It clocks in at around 2 hours and 42 minutes. So it's a quicker watch than most of the other WWE pay-per-views from 2017, 2018, which are now 4 hours in length. So it's one of the shorter shows in recent memory, but for good reason, because it's not really that good. So don't check it out. Thankfully, we are not getting any more installments of Clash of Champions. It is no more officially. I mean, unless they bring it back at some point in 2019, it's not being brought back for 2018, which I know that much is for certain, because we're getting TLC next Sunday instead. So that being said, guys, I will be back next weekend with an all-new review for WrestleRant, breaking down the 2017 TLC pay-per-view, which technically aired in October of 2017. This show is from December of 2017, so I'm going back a bit, but it is TLC weekend, so I figured I would save my TLC review for TLC 2018 weekend. So that'll be up next week. In the meantime, and in between time, guys, be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more content. Thanks as always, guys, for checking out the channel. I'm Graham G. Matthews. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll catch your ass down the road.